So in this video, we'll be discussing the past year introductory microeconomics. This is being taught to GE courses as well, along with Eco Honors first year students. So this is for B Honors Economics paper, first sem. Maximum marks are 90, which is as per NEP. So this paper is of 2023 microeconomics. Now you're supposed to attempt any 5 questions. You can use either Hindi or English or Hindi. Okay, so starting from the first question. So before starting with the video, I'll do 2022 micro as well. Then MME, we have already done 2023. So I'll do 2022 as well. This is left. And for stats, I'll do for 2023 and 2022. So okay, now moving to the first question. So we'll move as per the numbering on the top of the page. So 16 pages. So this is not in a sequence. Okay, starting in page 2, question 1, part A. Explain the principles of economics. So this is a very fairly easy question. Some of the principles, the 10 principles you must have studied. So if it is of 6 marks, at least 4 to 5 would do. So you can explain 4 and just mention rest of it. So one of the principle is that people face trade-offs. So if you are attending this class, so if you are attending this lecture, this means you are not spending time scrolling your reels. So you have a trade-off. So you have a choice. Because the time is limited, either you can watch the video and study, or you can just scroll through the reels. So there is a trade-off for you. So you will decide which one do you want to have. Next thing is, there comes the concept of opportunity cost. We know opportunity cost is the cost of next best alternative. So suppose you get 2 offers, one from KPMG and the other from EY, and keeping all other things constant, suppose KPMG is paying you 8 lakhs and EY is paying you 7 lakhs. So if all other factors are same, you'll prefer to go for KPMG. Then EY would be your opportunity cost 7 lakhs, because this is the cost of next best alternative that you have foregone. Then the principle that the people think at the margin, where so from a profit maximizing, they think from the perspective that MR should be equals to MC. Also some other principles that trade may be beneficial for all. Then government should intervene in the market to make sure that there is no market failure or the externalities are curbed. Then so we have this concept that non-economics background people suggest, why don't the government keep on printing money so that everyone can be rich? So if we keep on printing money, the problem would be because there is limited production, limited supply of goods. So increasing money in the hand of the people will lead to higher demand, and so higher aggregate demand. This you will study in macro. So with higher aggregate demand, with a limited number of supply of goods and services, this will lead to increase in the price level. So this will lead to inflation. And some of the other principles is, one of the other principles is Phillips curve, which shows an inverse relationship between inflation rate and rate of employment. So here it is inflation, rate of unemployment. Okay, so 3, you can write any 3. 3 would be more than sufficient. So this was fairly basic question. Now we'll move on to the next question. Okay, your total benefits from consuming, B part, your total benefits from consuming different quantities of burger each week are shown in the following table. Complete the marginal benefit column. So for the first, so marginal benefit would be, marginal benefit for commodity 1 is total benefit for 1 minus total benefit of 0. So this would be 150. Marginal benefit for 2 would be total benefit from consuming 2 minus total benefit from consuming 1. So this would be 250 minus 150, so this is 100. Then similarly 70, then 50, then 30, then 20. Now, so we are done with this part. The price of one burger is rupees 50. It is given that price of burger is rupees 50. Use the principle of optimization at the margin. So the consumer will keep on consuming the amount of burgers whenever the marginal benefit received would be greater than the price of burger. So to find the optimum number of burgers to consume each week. So if he is consuming one, the benefit he is getting is 150, which is greater than 50. So he'll consume one. For the second burger, the marginal benefit he is getting is 100. Similarly for third, but for fourth, since he is getting a marginal benefit of 50 and the price is 50, so he would be indifferent between consuming this or not. So in case of indifference, we will assume he will consume this. So he will end up consuming 4 units. Okay, so quantity of burger would be 4. Will your answer for second part remain same if you use optimization by level principle? I'm not sure what optimization by level principle is, but since a rational consumer would always consume quantity equals to 4, given the price of burger is 50. So your answer would remain the same. Now, D part, if the price of burger rises to 70, then find the new optimum number of burgers to consume each week. Now, if it has increased to 70, so if he consumes the fourth burger, he's getting benefit of 50 and he's paying 70. So he's paying extra. So he will stop at third burger where his marginal benefit to consume is 70. Okay. Moving on to the, so we have on, this is page 2. Now we'll move to page 3. Okay, this is page 3. This is the first question, C part. Write a short note on opportunity cost. We have already discussed opportunity cost is the cost of next best alternative foregone. Okay. You loan a friend rupees 10,000. So you have given a loan of rupees 10,000 to a friend. And at the end of 1 year, she writes you a check for 10,000 to pay off this loan. And so at the end of 10 years, she is giving you back the 10,000. If the annual interest rate on your savings account is 6%, what was the opportunity cost of making this loan? So what they're trying to say is, if you put 10,000 in the bank, you would have got 10,600. But since you gave the amount to your friend and she returned 10,000 only, so 600 would be your opportunity cost, because this is the amount that you have foregone when you were giving the loan to your friend. So page 3, we are done. These questions are in the Hindi version. Now coming to page 4, question 2, A part. There is a severe drought in Madhya Pradesh that damaged wheat crop last year. The price of wheat doubled in the first 3 months of this year. Explain the increase in wheat prices using supply and demand diagrams. So if there is a drought, so suppose this is the demand, this is supply, quantity, price. This is the market for wheat. Now, because of drought, this leads to fall in the production level. Production level falls. So if production level falls, the supply curve would shift towards the left. And if initial price was P0, now the price has increased to 2 P0. And hence the quantity has fallen from Q0 to Q1. So wheat doubled. The price of wheat doubled. So it has increased. So a better graph would be, suppose this is, so supply should, so this is P0. I'll draw it again. Okay, so suppose initially the price was here P naught. Now supply has increased to such a level that it is now 2 P naught. Supply has decreased from S naught to S1. Okay, so this first part is done. How will this drought affect the equilibrium price and quantity of bread? Now we know wheat is an ingredient for bread. So it is an input for bread. Now if the price of wheat has increased, that would mean in the market. Okay, so if the price of wheat has increased, from the first part we can infer price of wheat has increased. So the cost of making the bread would also increase. And now since the cost of making bread would increase, the supply of bread would fall. Okay, draw a supply and demand diagram for the bread market to explain your answer. Okay, I'll draw it here only. And now since this is demand, supply, price, quantity, this is for bread. Now if supply, because price of, okay, because price of wheat increased, so the cost of producing bread would increase, and since cost of producing bread is increasing, the supply curve would shift towards the left. So from initial equilibrium, we'll move to the one marked in red. That is this. So the prices have increased, P naught, Q naught, from P naught to P1, and quantity has decreased from Q naught to Q1. Okay, so we are done with this part as well. Now from 4, we need to move to 5. Okay, I'll just cancel those pages that we have completed so that we don't go there again and again. Okay, this you can do in your exams as well, so that it would actually help you in saving 5-6 minutes. So we were at 4, now we are supposed to be at 5. Now what is an indifference curve? So indifference curve is a graphical representation of two goods. It's a graphical combination of two goods which gives you the same level of satisfaction. Can two indifference curves intersect? Explain your answer. So here you need to prove this. Okay, so suppose these are our two indifference curve, IC1, IC2. Let's compare this point E. At point E, this is good X, this is good Y. Both the indifference curve are giving same level of satisfaction. But if we consider a point here, at this, the quantity of X consumed is same, suppose X1, but the quantity of Y consumed is, according to IC1 it is Y1, according to IC2 it is Y2. So because one of the principle is non-satiation, that is the consumer doesn't get negative utility. So if he is consuming more, he will get more positive utility. So if this is one of the assumptions that you have studied in the higher courses, you will study that this assumption can also be violated. But so far we know this. So we know this. So we know more is better. Okay, more is better. You must be aware of this. Now we can see that point A and point B. Point B would give you a higher satisfaction than point A. So IC2 would be preferred over IC1. But at E, what we had, IC1 is giving you the same satisfaction as IC2. So this cannot be true. Hence, two indifference curve cannot intersect. Okay. Moving to the C part. Consider a perfectly competitive market for a good has reached its long run equilibrium. At equilibrium, what is the economic profit for each firm? So perfectly competitive market hai, and there is a condition that there is free entry and exit of firms. So I'll draw this here. So initially, price equals to MR equals to AR, which is fixed. This is AR, and we know that this is AC, this is MC, this is AC. So suppose initially we have this scenario and profit is maximized where P equals to MC for a perfectly competitive firm at this point. So this would be the quantity, this would be the price. Prices are fixed, right? Now what happens is this profit is P minus AC into quantity. So P is this, AC is this. So this is the profit level. But since there is free entry and exit, new firms will keep entering the market, and because of which the supply would increase in the market. So this is, we are talking about a specific firm. For the industry, the demand and supply curve are like this. And if new firms keeps on entering the market, the supply curve would shift towards the left. Oh, sorry. If they keep on entering the market, it would lead to increase in the supply. So the supply curve would shift towards the right to S dash, and hence we'll have a lower price prevailing. So this for the firm as well. Initially, if the price was P1, now it has fallen to P0. So P0 would be somewhere here, P0. So if the firms keep on entering the market, there would be no future profit expected. So economic profit for each firm would be zero, because if there is positive profit, new firm would enter to gather it, and hence that would lead to reduction in prices and subsequently reduction in profits for every other firm. Can individual firms produce at minimum average total cost and make economic profits? So if they are producing at average total cost, so basically this is the scenario, that this is ATC, this is P, this is MC, this is P equals to MC equals to MR. So if they are producing at minimum of average total cost, we are talking about a perfectly competitive firm. So the demand curve is like this. So it cannot earn any profit, because profit is P minus ATC into quantity. And when P equals to ATC, profit would be zero. But in case of a monopolist, what happens is the demand curve is downward sloping, and then the possibilities of profit to earn profit is high. But the thing is, monopoly is not in part of your syllabus, so you can like skip this. Okay, so you can show with the help of this graph and the previous graph that I have drawn. Okay, so we are done with page 5 as well. I'll just erase this so that for this question we have space, that so that we know that page 12 is also remaining. Okay, so we are done with question till question 2. Okay, now this is question 6. Why is the long run supply curve horizontal? Explain using graph. So if this is the supply, this is the demand curve. Long run supply curve, this would be for a particular single firm. It is horizontal because you must have studied that the firms are willing to provide or supply any amount of goods or services at the prevailing price level. This is one of the characteristics of monopoly, and it is also due to constant returns to scale. So in case if there are constant returns to scale, the supply curve would be horizontal. The long run supply curve would be horizontal. Okay, so this is one of the properties, that there should be constant returns to scale, and any change in the demand or supply does not influence the input prices. So the cost would remain more or less same only. so this is also that you can write in your exams, that if there is any change in the industry supply or demand curve, that would not impact the input prices as well. So the cost of producing would remain same throughout. For every subsequent unit the cost is same only. So we'll have a horizontal supply curve. Okay, now third, B, what is tax incidence? So suppose that T per unit tax is being imposed on the consumer or on the suppliers. Tax incidence states what portion of this tax is being shared between the buyers or the consumers, we say, and the sellers or the producers. Now you must know one thing, this must be clear to you, that in case if a tax is being imposed either on the seller or on the buyer, the burden would depend upon the elasticity. So if elasticity of buyers is more, ED is greater than ES, which means if the tax is being imposed, the buyers can, if ED is more, which means there might be some close substitutes available, so the buyers can actually switch to some other good. Whereas in this case, the seller, the elasticity of supply is less elastic, so they might be stuck with it, and they are then supposed to bear a higher burden of the tax. Okay, draw a graph to show tax incidence if the demand is more elastic than the supply for a good. Demand is more elastic, so demand would be, and supply would be like this: demand, supply, price, quantity. Now either we can put a tax on the supplier or on the consumers. The answer would not be that much, would be same in both the scenarios. So suppose initially we are imposing a per unit tax on the sellers, so the supply curve would shift toward the left. At this would be the new quantity, this Q1, and this would be the new price. Initially the price was this P0, Q0. Now I'll tell you how you are supposed to tell what is the price paid by the buyer and what is the price received by the seller. So in this case, we know this is the equilibrium quantity, and check at what price level this equilibrium quantity is intersecting the demand curve, I'll draw with yellow, and the supply curve. So this is intersecting the supply curve at this point. So this is the price that the seller would receive, and the demand curve at this point. So this is the price that the buyers are paying now. Now initially buyers were getting OP0. Buyers were paying OP0, original price, and then we will compare new price. And the sellers were receiving OP0. Now the buyers are paying OPB and the sellers are receiving 0 PS. So this is not. So this is the origin. So the change in price for the buyers is this much. The one marked in yellow. So this is P0 PB, whereas for the sellers it is P0 PS. So the sellers are actually incurring a higher tax. So we have discussed when the tax was being imposed on the seller. Now suppose the same tax is being imposed on the buyer and the demand curve is more elastic than the supply curve. Then we can see, I'm drawing it here. This is demand, this is supply. Demand is more elastic than the supply curve. This is P0, Q0. So now the demand curve, so if the tax is being imposed on the buyers, the demand curve would fall towards the would fall downwards. This is the equilibrium quantity new, and at this is the price that the seller would get, and this is the price that the buyer are paying, PB. So this is the extra price that the buyers are paying. So this is the burden, the tax incidence shared by the buyer, and this is the tax incidence that is being shared by the sellers. So irrespective on whom the tax is being imposed, you will see the burden would depend on the elasticities. Okay, now moving to the next question, moving to the C part of this question. Okay, so we are on the third question right now. Okay, C part states the following table shows Priya and Sonia's total expenditure on chocolates. For Priya, this is 900, Sonia, it is 500 when price was 50, and when price was 40, for Priya, the expenditure was 800, and for Sonia, the expenditure was 600. Use the midpoint formula to calculate the price elasticity of demand for both Priya and Sonia when the price of chocolate increases from 40 to 50. So, the midpoint method, the elasticity is change in Q by change in P into P1 plus P2 upon 2 divided by Q1 plus Q2 upon 2. Okay, now since, okay, now let's look for Priya. Priya first. For Priya, if the price is 50, what is the quantity she is getting? So total expenditure is total revenue received by the seller, which is price into quantity. So if Priya is spending 50 or Priya is spending 900 and the price is 50, so the quantity would be 900 upon 50. So this is coming out to be 18. So at price 50, Priya is buying 18 quantity of chocolates. If the price is 40, so then in that case, Priya is spending 800 by 40, which is 20. So this is the price and quantity for Priya. Now, finding the elasticity for Priya, this would be change in Q. Change in Q is 2. As price increases from 40 to 50, so change in Q would be minus 2. From increase from this to this. Okay, so increase from 20 to 50. Change in P is 10 into P1 plus P2, which is 40 plus 50, which is 90 by 2. Q1 plus Q2, 38 upon 2. This cancels out. So 0, 0 would cancel out. 19. So elasticity for Priya is coming out to be minus 9 by 19. Okay, we can remove this absolute sign. We have 9 by 19 as elasticity for Priya. Similarly, for Sonia, we know for Sonia, okay, I'll just write it here only. For Sonia, we have price, quantity. So at price 50, Sonia would be consuming 500 upon 50, which is 10 quantities of chocolate. And for price 40, she is consuming 600 by 40, which is 15. So for Sonia, elasticity for Sonia would be the same formula, that is change in Q by change in P into P1 plus P2 upon 2 by Q1 plus Q2. My writing is getting worse. Into P1 plus P2 upon 2 by Q1 plus Q2 upon 2. Now elasticity of supply would elasticity of demand for Sonia would be change in Q is as price increases from 40 to 50 minus 5, change in P is 10 into P1 plus P2 90 upon 2 upon 25 upon 2. So this cancels out 1 by 5. So the elasticity is coming out to be minus 9 by 5 for Sonia. So for Sonia, the elasticity of demand is more, whereas for Priya, it is inelastic. Okay, from 6th, we need to move to 7. Explain why Priya would spend more on chocolates while Sonia would spend less when the price of chocolate rises. So if you know the total revenue method, and for Priya, we know the elasticity of demand is less than 1, which means percentage change in quantity demanded upon percentage change in price is less than 1. So suppose if price increases by 1%, quantity would decrease by less than 1%. Okay, so suppose price increase by 1%, quantity is increasing by 0.5%. Now look at total revenue, which is P into Q. Price is increasing by 1% plus quantity is falling by 0.5%. So the total impact is positive 0.5%. So the total revenue would increase for Priya. So how will we interpret this? How will we write this in the exam? That because for Priya, the price elasticity of chocolates is inelastic. So even if the price increases or falls, she would not change the demand of chocolate by a high amount. And since she is not changing it by a high amount, that would lead to a, so if price increase in price is less greater than the fall in the quantity, so total revenue would increase for Priya. Whereas for Sonia, the elasticity was coming out to be minus 9.5, which means it is elastic. So if the price of chocolate increases, she will drastically reduce the demand for chocolate, and hence the total revenue would fall. I hope this was clear. So we are done with the third question. So this is also done. Okay, this is written in the Hindi version only. 7th is done. Now we need to move to 8th. Sorry. Okay, for the 8th question, Alicia and Raj are both students working for the college fest. Alicia and Raj can only work for 5 hours a day. Okay, so Alicia, Raj, they both can work for 5 hours a day. Now, the college president informed them that they need to create 200 posters. They need 200, and call 250 companies for raising funds in next 10 days. Call 250 companies. They have days 10 with them. The following table shows how many posters and calls Alicia and Raj can work on in a given number of hours. So this is the number of hours they can work on. Create a production possibility curves for Alicia and Raj. Now, okay, so here we have poster and here we have calls. Okay, so for Alicia, I'll draw with green. So if Alicia works for 5 hours, she can do 10 posters. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Okay, so I'll do this. I'll mark this as 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. This is 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. So Alicia, if she puts all her effort on the poster, she can have total posters of 10. And if she works on calls only, so the total calls would be 25. So in a given day, she will be able to, this would be the production possibility frontier for her. And because it is increasing by 2, so the marginal rate of transformation is same throughout, constant. So that is why it is not a bowed out curve. So it is a linear curve. Okay, so this would be for Alicia. Similarly, the one in the red would be for Raj. So Raj can make 25 posters and 10. So this linear curve, this would be for Raj, and the green one is for Alicia. Now we can have a combined curve as well for both of them. So if both of them produce only posters, so it would be 10 plus 25, 35. And if both of them produce only calls, 10 plus 25, which is also 35. So it would be 35, 35. Okay, now we have solved this. What is Alicia's opportunity cost of creating one poster? So if Alicia in 1 hour Alicia is able to create 2 posters. So for one poster, she needs 0.5 hours. And in 1 hour, she is able to make 5 calls. So in 0.5 hours, she would be able to make 2.5 calls. So one poster, okay, the law of transitivity, if 1p equals, one poster equals to half hour equals to 2.5 calls. So one poster would be equivalent to 2.5 calls. So this is the opportunity cost of Alicia. Now, okay, now moving to the C part of the question. Can both Alicia and Raj benefit from helping each other? So we know Alicia is more efficient in calls because in every hour she is able to make 5 calls, whereas she is able to make, if you're talking about Alicia, she is able to make only 2 posters every hour. So 2 posters is equivalent to 5 calls for her. So one poster is equivalent to 5/2 calls. Whereas for Raj, it is 5 posters equals to 2 calls and one poster equals to 2/5 calls. So Raj has a comparative advantage in producing posters, whereas Alicia has a comparative advantage in producing calls. So they can meet somewhere here, and this would make sure that they collectively took less time to complete the task assigned. Okay, 2 2 2, 6 marks. Now moving to the 9th page. So this is question 4 only. B part. How does the minimum wage affect the labor market equilibrium? Our economists in favor of minimum wage give reasons. So first thing, a minimum wage would be binding when it is imposed above the equilibrium price. So suppose P0 is the equilibrium price given demand and supply of quantity of labor, and this is wage. This is not P0, this is the wage W0, suppose. Okay, this is W0. Now the minimum wage would be binding. So suppose if the wage is being imposed here, so this would automatically lead to, this won't make any sense because this would automatically lead to wage. So this would lead to excess demand for labor, and if there is excess demand for labor, the wage rate would rise till we reach the equilibrium level back. But suppose, but suppose the minimum wage rate is imposed at a wage higher than the prevailing wage rate. Now the wage has increased to, this is suppose W1. Now the wage has increased to W1, which means this quantity of labor, suppose Q0 labor were able to supply, okay, let this be L0 workers. Now L1 laborers would get a wage W1, but L1, L2, I'm drawing it with yellow, this is the amount of labor that is willing to supply their services at a wage rate of WL or W1, but they are not able to supply because there is a demand constraint. So what has actually happened is, for some of the workers, initially 0 L0 workers were there at wage rate W0, but now the workers have reduced to 0 L1 and they are having a higher wage. So it is beneficial for these workers, but for the remaining workers L1, L2 who are willing to work at W1, the new wage, they are not able to get the employment because there is demand constraint. And since there is demand constraint, they are not able to get the employment. So what happens is, some of the workers have benefited who are able to get the job, but the others are at a disadvantage. And with this, these workers would get into the informal sector where it is very difficult to regulate, and they might, in the informal sector, they might getting a wage which is even less than W0. So That is why the economists sometimes are not in favor of minimum wage. Okay, now moving to the C part. So Varun has 1,000 rupees to spend on cold drink and popcorn. Price of cold drink, this should be C. Price of cold drink is 100 and price of popcorn is 200. So price of cold drink 100, price of popcorn 200. Now suppose we have on the x-axis popcorn and cold drink on the y-axis. Construct and draw the budget constraint. So if he's consuming everything on the popcorn, he will be able to buy 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And if he's consuming everything on, if he's spending all of his income on cold drink, he would be able to get 10. 1, 2, okay, 2, 4, 6, 8, then 10. So this would be the budget constraint. Budget constraint should be cold drink into price of cold drink plus popcorn into price of popcorn should be less than equals to income. So price, so 100 C plus 200 popcorn should be less than equals to income was 1000. So C plus 2P should be less than equals to 10. This is the budget constraint. So the whole value, this whole value would be the budget constraint, including the point, the origin. Okay, now we are done with the first part. Show the change in the budget constraint that would occur if price of popcorn dropped to 150. Now if the price of popcorn dropped to 150, the maximum he can consume of popcorn would be 1000 upon 150. That he is consuming every of his income on popcorn only. So this would be 20 upon 3, which is 6.67. So we would have 5, 6, this would be 7. So 6.67 would lie here. And since the price of cold drink is remaining the same only, so the maximum he can consume cold drink would remain same, and we would have a budget line like this. So this would shift from the x-axis, which is measuring the popcorn, to the right, and the coordinate on the cold drink would remain the same. Show the change in the budget constraint that would occur if the price of cold drink doubled. Now if suppose this was the initial budget line. We have popcorn here, cold drink here, and this was 10 and this was 5. Now if the price of cold drink doubled, which means price of cold drink becomes 200. So we would be able to consume 5 cold drinks only. So the new budget line would be this. Okay, this was straightforward only. Now the fourth part. Show the change in the budget constraint. That would occur if the income increased to 2000. So with a given initial level, now this was 10, this was 5. Now if the income doubles, so he can purchase 20 cold drinks and 10 popcorns. So the budget line would lead to a parallel shift outwards. Fifth part, can we determine Varun's final consumption? Explain your answer. Now we don't know whether so even if we know that cold drink and popcorns are substitutes, but we don't know what proportion, they are not substitutes. First thing, cold drink and popcorn are complements. But we don't know whether Varun would prefer one cold drink with one Pepsi, one popcorn, or 2 cold drinks with 1 packet of popcorn, or 1 cold drink with 2 Pepsis, or any other combination. So we don't know his utility function as such. So we won't be able to determine Varun's final consumption. So you can just mention it that although cold drink and popcorns are complements, but still we won't be able to determine the consumption level of Varun because we don't know his utility function. Okay, so we are done with this question as well. So I'll delete this. We are done with 8 as well. We are left with 10. Okay, 10 is in the Hindi version only, the same thing that we have already discussed. So we're done with 10 as well. Okay, now moving to question 11. Sorry, question 5, which is on page 11. Okay, so I'll try to make only one video for, like, I'll try to solve this whole paper in one video only. Now, why does government need to subsidize education? Show the effect of a subsidy on the education market using a graph. You need to subsidize education because, okay, because education is a merit good, and if the education level is higher, it increases the job prospects for the individual concerned, and it would lead to low criminal rate in the society, and it would avoid the society from social chaos. Okay, and it increases the employment opportunities of the individual, it makes the individual more aware. Okay, show the effect of a subsidy on the education market using a graph. Now suppose this is the supply, this is the demand, and now if a subsidy is being given to the buyers, so to the consumer, so suppose we have a scheme like Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao. This would lead to increase in demand for education. So this is for education market, and if demand for education increases, this, so suppose initially this was the number of individuals who were getting education, this was the price for, or the fees of the school, or the price of education. Now with a subsidy, the equivalent quantity of numbers is n1, and this is the price PB that the buyers, that the individuals who want to have education are paying, and this is the price that the sellers are getting for education. And this, I'm drawing it with yellow, this is the subsidy that is being provided to the consumers, to the individuals, to have education. So the demand curve shifts to the right. This is the total subsidy which is being shared by both. So the sellers are getting more by PEPS, and the buyers are paying less by PEPB. So initially the buyers were paying PE, 0 PE. Now they are paying 0 PB, so which is less than 0 PE. So the education has become cheaper for them, whereas for the sellers they were getting 0 PE, and now they are getting 0 PS, and PS is greater than PE, so the sellers are also getting a higher price. So this would lead to increase in demand and supply from both the sides. Okay, now we are done with the first part. Suppose the supply and demand schedule for glass are as follows. This is page 11. So okay, we are done with page 11 as well. We need to look at page 12. Okay, so demand and supply schedules are given to us. Draw the graph and state the equilibrium, price and quantity, and the total surplus in the glass market. So for the glass market, you need to look at which demand and supply, at which price level demand equals to supply. That would give you the equilibrium. Okay, so if you'll see at price 80, this would be the equilibrium. Okay, drawing the demand and supply curve, I won't be able to draw it exactly, but for the demand curve, when price is 20, demand is 100. When price is 120, demand is 0. So suppose we have 120 here, and for 20 it is 100. Okay, for supply curve, I'll draw it with green. See, when price is 20, supply is 0. When price is 30, supply is 0. When price is 40, supply is 0. So price is here, quantity is here. Till price 40, supply is 0. So this is the supply curve. and after this it would increase. And if we know this value, we know this is quantity is 40, price is 80. Now draw the graph and state the equilibrium price and quantity. We have already stated this, and the total surplus. Total surplus would be, in this case, consumer surplus plus producer surplus. Consumer surplus is the area below the demand curve and above the price level. So consumer surplus would be this area A. Okay, just okay. So the consumer surplus would be this was 80. The consumer surplus is this area A. Producer surplus is the area above the supply curve and below the demand curve. So consumer surplus would be half into this thing, the one in the red. So half area of the triangle, half into base. Base is 40. Half into 40 into height. Height is 120 minus 80, which is 40. So 20 into 40, 800 is the consumer surplus. So 800 plus, now the producer surplus. Producer surplus is area B. So this is half into base. Half into base is 440 into height. Height is also 40. So this would be same as 800. So the total surplus would be 1600. Now what they have stated is, okay, this is 120. Calculate the new quantity that will be traded, consumer surplus, producer surplus, and deadweight loss if a price floor is set at 100. Now if the price floor is set at 100, okay, so this is 100. This is the price floor. At 100, the quantity demanded is, when price is 100, quantity demanded is 20. Okay. Also, this diagram is getting a bit, okay, I'll just draw a new diagram. Okay, so initially we had this is 120, price, quantity. The supply curve was like this, and this was price is 80, quantity was 40. Now if the price is set at 100, this is 100, the quantity demanded, see this is the demand curve, so at this intersection the quantity demanded we have seen is 20. Okay, and the quantity supplied is 60. Okay, the new quantity that will be traded, so demand is 20, supply is 60, so the final amount of the commodity that would be sold would be 20, because we'll take minimum of demand and supply. Okay, now you need to calculate the new quantity traded, consumer surplus, producer surplus. Okay, that's it. And the deadweight loss. So consumer surplus would be this area A. Producer surplus would be the area marked in red, and the deadweight loss would be the area marked in yellow. So the consumer surplus would be half into base. Base is 20 into height is 120 minus 100, which is 20. So consumer surplus is 200. So we can see as the price has increased, the consumer surplus has reduced by 600. Now at this point, look at this point, at quantity 20 we can know what the price level is. So if we go here, this would be the supply, this is intersecting the supply curve at this, so this would be the price level at quantity 20. So at quantity 20, supply, okay, look at this, the 20 units are supplied when price is 60. So this price would be 60. So the area, the deadweight loss would be half into base into height. This was 40. So half into this base. Okay, I'll draw with yellow. This would be the base and this would be the height. So half into, it would be half into base is 40, height is 40 minus 20, 20. So 400. So we know deadweight loss is coming out to be 400. Now look at this. We have found the deadweight loss. For producer surplus, if you know the area of the trapezium, perfectly fine. But if you don't know the area of the circle of the trapezium, then you can divide it into a rectangle. Okay, drawing it with red, with this rectangle, and then this triangle. So this coordinate was 40 when we drew the supply curve. So the area of this rectangle would be 20 into 40, which is 800, plus the area of the triangle would be half into 20 into 20. So 10, which is coming out to be 1000. So what we have seen is, initially the total surplus was 1600. Now the total surplus is 200 plus 1000, which is 1200. And we are incurring a deadweight loss of 400. And if you will sum it up, it is coming out to be consumer surplus plus producer surplus plus deadweight loss is coming out to be 1600. Okay, now moving to the C part. So what we have is, explain the trade-off between equity and efficiency. Okay, so incentives, you can talk here about incentives and how, if the focus is on efficiency, that is to increase the GDP growth rate again and again, focus is on this only. And then the government uses taxes. The government taxes the rich individuals, and with the help of the taxes that the government get, they subsidize the poor. You can mention some of the schemes if you are aware of, that is National Food Security Act, or the example of railways where we are getting subsidized. There is cross subsidization. And even in the case of like the water electricity bill that you get, after a certain amount you are supposed to pay a higher taxes and all. So this would lead to, so if you're taxing the rich individuals, they would have less incentive to work. So if you want to have equity, that is by taxing the rich and giving it to the poor, it might hamper the efficiency. So is it possible for the government to improve equity and efficiency at the same time? Yes, it is possible. So if the government has, there is some National Skill Development Council as well, so which increases the capacity of the individuals to so that they are able to reach their capability level, and that would further enhance the GDP as well. And if they have the employment opportunities with them, that would further lead to more growth in the economy, and the inequality would fall between the rich and the poor. Okay, you can give 2-3 more examples, but that is totally fine. Okay, so we are done with page 12 as well. Okay, we are left with 13. This is 13. What is Coase theorem? Under what condition will the theorem break down? So Coase theorem states that if the property rights are well defined, then with the help of bargaining, the individuals, irrespective on whom the power is being conferred, they can reach to a efficient outcome. Under what conditions will the Coase theorem break down? So first condition would be if there is transaction cost. So if there is transaction cost, the bargaining power might be impacted, even though the individuals would be willing to get into an agreement or something, but because of the transaction cost, they are not able to get into one. So this could break down. And then there is asymmetric information. That is, one of the party might have better knowledge better knowledge about the good concerned. So this happens usually in case of second-hand cars, and one of the other factors could be under what condition will the cost theorem break down. So if they are forming an agreement, like suppose if they are talking about shipping industry and they are forming an agreement, and since there might be a lot of individuals involved in the bargaining process, it is difficult to get to a solution. Okay, so this is also done. We'll move to page 14. Page 14, we are left with, we are done, we are doing question 6, then there is 7th question. Yeah, that's it. Okay, I'll just take a 2-minute break. We'll start after 2 minutes. Okay, now moving to the 6th question B part. What do you mean by game of strategy? Give some examples. So in game theory for you, this is very basic stuff which is being asked. What is payoff and all? Game of strategy, and basically you would have a strategy, and that would be the best action given the strategy of the other individual. So given the action of the other individual, you would form a strategy. So it could be a sequential or a simultaneous. Sequential means first, simultaneous means both are taking the action at the same time. Sequential means first I am taking the action and then you will take the action. So then I will take the action. So this is a sequence. Okay, so give some examples. I'll give you an easy example that would be easy for you to remember. So suppose you go to a fest, and to your college fest you will be going in another 2-3 months. So one of the hosts tell you that we are tossing a coin. So you two friends, suppose you two of your two friends are there. First individual, okay, and then the second individual, and they say that if head comes out, so you both toss a coin. So you and one of your friend toss a coin. If it turns out head, then you will get 1-1 each. But if it turns out head or tail or tail or head, you will get 0 each. So if it is coming out head or tail, you will get the desired amount. So 0 0 1 1. So your strategy would be to get the same number. So you can have any ample number of questions. So prisoner's dilemma is a basic. Prisoner's dilemma is a basic example that you can state as well. So this actually depends on the strategy. So suppose if we are doing a coin toss, and it is stated that if it comes out to be a head, okay, okay, I guess one of this example is fine. You can give another examples if you want, but that is also fine. The price of a good in a perfectly competitive market is 50. So price is given as 50. A producer has the following total cost and marginal cost function. Total cost is, so we know total cost is sum of total fixed cost plus total variable cost. In this case, this is the fixed and this is variable, right? And marginal cost is 0.3q. I'm not sure why they have given this, because marginal cost, we can derive marginal cost from del TC by del Q, which is same as del TVC by del Q. So del by del Q of 300 plus 0.2q square. So this would be 0.4q. This would be the marginal cost. Okay, so there would be a correction in this. The marginal cost would be 0.4q. Okay. Now what they're saying is, write the equation for the firm's average variable cost. We know total variable cost is 0.2q square. So the average variable cost is 0.2q square upon q. So which is 0.2q. AVC is 0.2q. This was easy. Compute the output that the firm will produce to maximize profit. The profit maximizing condition for a perfectly competitive firm is price equals to MC. So price is 50, marginal cost is 0.4q. So the quantity is coming out to be 500 upon 4. So if you'll solve this, this would be 125. Calculate the profit made by the firm if it produces the profit maximizing quantity. So profit of the firm would be price into Q, which is total revenue, minus total cost, which is a function of quantity only. So 50 into Q minus 300 minus 0.2 Q square. So this would be 50 into 125. This is 6250 minus 300 minus 0.2 into Q square would be 125 square is 15,625 into 0.2. So this is 0.2 into Q square into 125. I'll just write 125 square is 15,625. Okay. Now the profit for the firm would be 6250 minus 300 minus 0.2 into 15625. So this is coming out to be 2825. So the profit is coming out to be positive. Then the firm will continue to operate. And look at the other case as well. Okay, look at the other case as well. So price equals to MC, 50 equals to 0.4Q. Okay, look at the other case as well. I'm not sure about the calculation, so it's been close to 1 hour I'm solving these questions. So I'll tell you what case you can consider as well. So in case if the profit is coming out to be, so in case if you are having a loss and it is coming out to be less than minus 300, because 300 was the fixed cost. So in that particular case, you are supposed to shut down, because although you are incurring the total fixed cost of 300, but suppose the profit is coming out to be minus 350, which is a loss, which means you are incurring the total fixed cost of 300, and because of your operations of selling and because of the marginal cost incurred as well, you are incurring an additional loss of minus 50. So you will shut down. But if your profit, which is actually a loss, if it is coming in the range minus 300 to 0, so that would mean that this fixed cost, that is, if this is so this fixed cost would become a sunk cost for you. This is sunk cost because we have already incurred a sunk cost, and your total revenue is greater than your total variable cost, which means with the help of the operations you are able to earn something, so that you are able to reduce this fixed cost. So then in that case it makes sense for you to operate. Okay, so we are done with this as well. So we are done with page 14 and question 6. Now this is the last question. Draw graphs for each of the following cases and explain the final effect on equilibrium quantity and prices for cars in the perfectly competitive market. High interest rate on car loans. So if the interest rate are high, this is demand, this is supply, this is price, this is quantity of cars, price of cars. So if the interest rate on car loans are high, which means it is costlier to get a car loan, so the demand would fall. This was fairly easy. Demand would fall, and hence the demand falls. So initial price was this P naught, Q naught. So the price and quantity would both fall. Now B part, simultaneous increase in the income of the consumer. So if the income of the consumer is increasing, the demand would increase, and a restriction on the inflow of foreign labor employed in the car industry. So because the foreign labor that is being employed in the car industry is not being allowed, that would lead to increase in the cost, and this subsequently would lead to fall in the supply. So in this particular case, you have to draw three diagrams. Demand increase equals to supply fall. Demand increases by a higher amount as compared to the fall in supply, and demand increases by a lower amount as compared to the fall in supply. So the first case would be, okay, I'll draw the new curves with red. So this is demand, supply. Please make sure to mark the x's as well. If demand increases and supply falls by the same proportion, so the quantity would remain same and only the price would increase from P0 to P1. Quantity would remain same. The second case, demand increases by a higher amount. So if demand increases by a higher amount, so demand is increasing by this from D to D1, the supply is this, but the supply is falling by a small amount. So supply is falling by this much to S1. The new equilibrium would be at point this. So what we have seen is, initially we were at this point. So the quantity has increased and the price has also increased. Initially we were at this point, now, yeah. So the quantity has increased and the price has also increased. Price increased, quantity increased. Here we had price increased, quantity same. Now the third case, I'll draw this here. The third case, when demand increases by a smaller rate. So suppose demand increases by this. This is D1, D0, this is D1, this is S, but supply falls by a higher amount. So initially the equilibrium was this, but supply falls by a higher amount. So what we have is, the quantity has fallen but the prices have increased. The price has increased from P0 to P1. So price have increased, quantity has fallen. So the three cases I'm marking in red. Price increase, quantity same, price increase, quantity fall, price increase, quantity rise. So what we can say is, price would definitely increase, but the impact on quantity is ambiguous. That is, we cannot infer whether the quantity would increase, rise or fall. That would depend on the magnitude. Okay. Now the C part, expectation that the cars will become cheaper next year. So if it is becoming cheaper next year, we will demand more next year. So we will reduce the demand now. So the price and quantity both will fall. Okay. Now moving to the next part. Differentiate between private, public and club goods. Okay. Private goods are both excludable and rival. Public goods are non-excludable, non-rival, whereas club goods are excludable but not rival. Okay, excludable means you can restrict someone from using it. Rival means if I am consuming that good, it is not available for the others to consume as well. So suppose Suppose if I'm talking about chocolate, if I have bought a chocolate, I can exclude any other stranger from eating it. And if I take a bite, the amount of chocolate left would be less. So it is excludable and rival. So it is a private good. Chocolates. We were supposed to give the examples as well. So chocolates. In case of public goods, think of a park or a think of a park in your surrounding, in your locality. What happens is that it is a public property, so no one can deny you from using it. And even if you're using it, there is still, so the park is not disappearing, so it is not rival. That is, the other people can also consume it after consume the services given by the park. And for the public good, one of the example is national defense as well. So it cannot be the case that the army personals who are guarding the borders, they would say that no, we won't guard for these specific individuals, but we will guard for rest of them. So they would be guarding for, so this is a non-excludable service, and this is a non-rival service as well. For club goods, they are excludable but non-rival. So suppose if you're talking about a water supply in our household, it is excludable because we can exclude others from using it, but it is non-rival, because if we are using it, that would not mean that the consumption of it would fall, that the water pipeline would not be there. Or we can talk about the cable DTH recharge as well. So it is excludable, we can exclude the others from using it, but once we have got it, we can have unlimited supply of it. Okay, now we are done with the 15th. Last part, C part. Explain why correlation does not always imply causation. So correlation means, we will study in basic econometrics or stats, a linear relationship between the two variables. Linear relationship between two variables. Now, suppose if you're talking about your score in maths and micro. So it would depend on how much efforts you have put in all of the factors. But if you are intelligent or smart enough, so it is expected that if your math score is high, your micro score would also be high, because they are correlated. But this does not mean that if your math score is high, then it should be the case that your micro score is also high. Right? It might be the case that some of us might have problems in micro, or suppose we have problems in maths, we're not that much comfortable with maths. So if you're scoring good in micro, that does not imply that we would score good in maths. So this is, a good score in micro is not causing or not leading to a good score in maths. Okay. Identify cause and effect relationship, if any, in the following cases. Drought and rise in the price of rice. So if drought occurs, that would lead to decrease in the supply from S to S dash, and hence the price for rice would rise. So what we can say is, if drought occurs, it is causing the price of rice to increase. So there is a cause and effect relationship present. Female education and lower fertility rate. So it is generally believed that higher the level of education of the mother, so the employment opportunities increases, and she goes in such a family planning manner, such that she prefers to have one or two children, so that the awareness that leads to lower fertility rate. So this is also showing the cause and effect relationship. So okay, so we are done with this, and I'll do 2022 micro paper as well, and 2023 or 2022 maths, then 2023 stats, and then 2022 stats. I hope these questions that I attempted were clear. Okay, thank you.